Greetings, everyone. I am heading home from the fire department. Just got done with my 24-hour shift, so a little tired, but we had a really good shift. Had the opportunity to help a couple people, which is always a great reward, and why a lot of us got into this line of work. We had a little car fire yesterday too, which was interesting. We don't get those all the time, and it was really cool to see. Even the fact that we don't get them a lot of times or as often as other calls. How well our crews were able to work together. Everybody kind of knew, you know, the different roles that need to be filled, even though they weren't like pre-assigned. Somebody saw that somebody else was already on, the hose line. We needed somebody else to get like, the saw, somebody else to get the cones and safety and all these other things. So it was cool to see, even though we don't do it all the time, that, we're still able to, obviously be professional and get the job done and do a good job. So it was cool. Definitely a good shift. Something always different. Every day uh, that I go to work or that we go to work as firefighters, police officers, and all different public safety. So uh, yeah. So today is Sunday morning, probably 8 o'clock right now. Uh, I wanted to talk to you guys about that question that I got in the email um, a couple of days ago. I never heard back from the person, so I'm just going to do my best to um, try to make it as broad and directional at the same time to answer their question. So if you're watching, then I hope this answers your question for you. But the question was definitely something that I've I've talked to people about before, and it comes up. I wouldn't say often, but enough times that I wanted to answer it, here live for you guys. And the question was, can you disagree with someone and still remain friends? A lot of times, we get into this position that we feel when we disagree with someone, sometimes there's like this bad blood, or we feel like, things are just never going to be the same because we just strongly disagree on a certain direction or a certain subject matter. You could say politics or uh, food choice, or, I mean, it could be whatever it is that you disagree on. For some people, um, it's that important, that they're like, I feel this strongly that maybe I can no longer be friends, with this person. And my answer to the question is it's a yes and no response. And the reason why I say no is because basically we're going to explain why yes, why you can still remain friends even though you have a disagreement with someone. And basically, it's going to follow suit that if it doesn't fall in line with what you feel, or if you don't agree with all of the yes portion of the answer, then the answer is no. There are moments where you just kind of outgrow certain relationships, or you outgrow certain people, not in a bad way, not like they're bad people, but you're just moving in another direction with your life, that your time would be better spent with, surrounding yourself with different people or different um, environment, even at times. Some people like to move, or get completely away from where they are so that they can almost have this reinvention of themselves. And you see that sometimes with the people that you hang out with. So at the end of the day, if it's a complete, I don't agree with any of the things you're saying, as far as like, yes, you can still remain friends if you disagree, then it's a no. And we'll touch on that a little bit more than I just did um, after we go through the yes. So the reason why I say yes, you can still remain friends, is um, because we have to try to get away from this idea that when we get into an argument, or a disagreement and a debate over something, there's this idea that somebody has to be right and somebody has to be wrong. Like, there has to be a winner and then there has to be a loser in that disagreement, debate, argument, whatever you want to call it. And that's not always the case. There are a lot of situations where you can have a disagreement where ultimately, and I've talked about this before, ultimately the goal should be to pursue the truth. Whether you're the person that is right in the situation or wrong in the situation, the goal should be to truly figure out what is the truth, what is the right answer in this situation for our situation. What's the best direction for us to move in, or what's the best option. There's times that I've heard people get into, I guess, like I said, debates about diets, and okay, this is the best diet, this is the best diet, and then one of the people I trust the most when talking to about nutrition, their go-to thing is everybody's gut is different. What works for me may not work for you. So is there ultimately even a right choice? And that's what I'm saying is what's the truth? Even though you're saying it's to be on a keto diet and somebody else is saying to be on a vegan diet, it might work for the person that does vegan and it might work for the person that does keto to stay on what they're doing, have that disagreement, but still find the truth in it. So when we follow this idea that somebody has to be right and somebody has to be wrong, that's when, if you follow that same debate, keto versus vegan, if you feel that strongly about it, it might get you to a point where you feel, some emotional response where you're like, man, this person just doesn't see, they're so closed-minded and they don't get it. There's the research behind it. I just can't associate with these people. And again, if that's how you feel and it's a no and you don't want to hang out with those people, then kudos to you for knowing where you stand and where you want to go. But on the flip side to it is understanding that there could be more than one answer, and in some cases you could be wrong and in some cases you could be right. So a lot of times when I get to this idea of having disagreements, because in the work that I do and working with people, sometimes people disagree with the things that I have to say. Like as a coach, sometimes the things that I say, um, they can come across a little harsh. I try to put it as nicely and as plainly as I can, but in some situations, you have to tell it like it is, and you have to tell the truth. And so sometimes you get into that mentoring, like awkwardness where you're trying to be honest, you're trying to help, but people are still so rigid in what they believe. And again, a lot of times rigid in having to be right and saying, no, what I've been doing for the last, you know, 18 months or 18 years is right. I'm doing the right thing. Um, Obviously, if you're seeking out mentorship and looking to improve and expand, chances are there's something to improve and expand on what you've been working on. So, um, again, not that what you've been doing is wrong, but it can be improved on. But you get into that momentary like awkwardness where you're trying to help and all that stuff, and people want to stay fixated on what it is. So when I get into those moments, I think about art, and it takes me back to the story. I took a trip. Oh man, I want to say we were in Amsterdam, and we went to the Van Gogh Museum that was in Amsterdam. I hope I got that right. I want to say it was Amsterdam, and I want to say the artist was Van Gogh. I'm almost positive on it. I could be mistaken, but in any regard, one of my really good friends, one of my best friends, we were walking through the museum, and we both kind of approached a painting at the same time, and we're both kind of looking at it for about a minute, just kind of taking in, the art, seeing what it speaks to us. And it was really funny because after about a minute, he started to explain, his impression and the um, what he thought the painting was trying to express. And so I'm looking at it and I'm going, man, I go, my friend, like he's one of my like most insightful friends, very, very smart individual. So I'm looking at him and I'm like, I just, I don't think that's it. I don't think that's it. And I went like a completely different direction with it, and I shared my interpretation of it. And so he gave me the same look I was giving him, like, No, I honestly, I don't think that's it. Meanwhile, a little side note, there is a little paragraph at the bottom of the painting that explains what the intention, what the expression of the artwork is intended to be, and we're completely negating the fact that there is the truth right there in front of us, and we're just kind of going back and forth on what we think, the painting says to us. And the reason why I think about that story is because as art is, whether it's a painting from Van Gogh or it's a car, people put certain wheels, they pick certain colors, or your kitchen and the way you design your home, like all of those different things, it's a form of art and it's a form of expression. And I can easily walk into my sister's house and say, "Oh, I don't really like that table," but if she likes it and it works for her, her family and her kids, and then who cares? It works for them. So and that's how sometimes I see those disagreements. Is if you're pursuing the truth and you feel like what you're working toward is something that you truly believe in, then that is the ground to stand on. Again, where it gets to the point of no, you can no longer be friends is when people start to become disrespectful. There's a fine line and definition of disagreement and friendly disagreement, and then just being disrespectful and saying nasty things and not being respectful of the partnership. There are partnerships where you have, like, we'll say, like a mentor and then a mentoree, right? So the person that's wanting to learn and the person that's teaching. Then you have friendships or relationships that are equal, like my friend and I. He looked at me the way that I looked at him. We were equals. um, and so throughout all of these different relationships, there's always this respect, and I feel like it's like an unwritten respect, just a normal, um, formal understanding of, like, look, I'm in this position, I'm an equal with this person, I can have this type of conversation with this person, or I'm in a mentoring relationship. When I speak with my mentors, I do my best, even though I do like to talk a lot, I do my best to, and if they're watching this, they're probably laughing a little bit because I try my best, I promise you, to not talk. I try to listen because as a mentoree, listening to my mentor, I want to I want to try to soak up all the information that I possibly can from that communication, from that relationship. So, and these are, I kind of touch on this subject a little bit on in my ebook, Guide to Working with Mentors. The different relationships and stuff like that. It's a free download on my website at jrsinspires.com. Again, jrsinspires.com. I have it both in where you can read it in physical form, and then also in audio form, both for free, and you can download it at my website. If you guys want to follow me on social media, I guess it's a good time to talk about it. Instagram is at JRS Inspires, Twitter is at JRS Inspires, and Facebook.com/JRS Inspires. And then obviously I have my YouTube channel, JRS Inspires, as well, which we are on now. And also I have a blog talk that I'm going to be uploading a lot of these talks that we have on here to my blog talk radio, as well as doing live segments on there where you guys can call in with your questions. There's a call-in number, and we can speak live and go over basically any subject matter that we have, pretty much in regard to what we're talking about today. As people call in, it's a respectful conversation. We try to build in a certain positive direction, and if you're about that, if you're with that and you want to join in on that, then call in on those segments. You can always uh, also reach out to me here live on YouTube Live. Any questions or anything like that pop up, as long as it's in alignment with what we're building on, then I am more than happy to expand on it as well as I can, and like I said, hopefully help you guys build in a positive direction. For a long time, I always enjoyed, like, teaching and helping, and I never really I never really knew, like, the true potential that I could take it to, and that's what I'm working with right now, and really taking it as far as I can in helping people. I've touched on this, and as a firefighter, I do love my job because I have the opportunity to help people. But a lot of times, helping people in that capacity is always in a reactive state. So basically, something bad has to happen. Somebody has to process it as this is a situation where I need 911 or I need emergency help or care, and then they call us. So I'm always playing catch up and helping people kind of return to their homeostasis or to their normal life. And like I said, I love it. It's a great opportunity. I've enjoyed the years that I've been able to put in, and the years that I have ahead of me. Um, but I love to have this opportunity to get to the proactive side of things, and this is where I definitely see myself carrying this out for the rest of my life, and helping people um, not just live with that. I don't want to say mediocre, because sometimes we all, again, just like we all have different opinions, we all strive for different things. So sometimes, just yesterday I had a group of young men and women come to the fire station and they were asking about the fire service. I thought that was awesome. It was yesterday was Saturday. It was a day that we could, kind of typically a little bit more laid back of a day. I mean, we still do some training, we still do all, stuff around the station. But when they showed up, I was out there with them for like an hour and a half because, like I said, I love to teach and I love to be able to answer those questions. And a lot of times I feel there's a generic answer that people try to give in a lot of situations. So when it comes to the fire service or it comes to life, there's almost like this, I guess, like almost like a safe answer or an answer that kind of points you in a very generalized direction. And I like to kind of try to take it a little bit further, bring in just a different vantage point that allows people to see, maybe some things that are maybe not spoken about or less spoken about. And an example of that was, yesterday one of the people that came by the station, they were asking, they're like, "What's one thing that you don't like about the fire service?" And so a lot of times, like, and there's firefighters watching this or police officers. A lot of times, there's this overall consensus of like, "Oh, it's the best thing ever," and and I absolutely love my job, but to act like there's not any downfalls to it, um, I feel like that's not real. It's not honest. And so I shared with them. I said, well, there's definitely a lot of things that as I was getting into it, especially with me getting into it as young as I did, I was very naive, and I just believed that it was going to be like this, like you know, fairy tale or something. And it's real life. It's real world. You see real situations that um, it's not a movie. It's not fake blood. It's not a fake, story behind, the incident. Like what you're dealing with is a very, very real circumstance. But, and a lot of times people know that though, when you're getting into this, that's one of the things that is, I would say, less spoken about. It's not never spoken about, if that's a double negative, but um, it, it does come up in conversation from time to time, but it's one of those things that people don't talk about a lot. A lot of times people talk about you know how great it is, and the camaraderie and the schedule and all these other things. But what I like to touch on and point out is, like I said, a little bit different. So one of the things that I see about the fire service, if you're getting into the fire service or really any type of public safety or anything like that, or city or county job, is that the true benefits really only come with longevity in the job. Um, the way that our retirement and stuff is set up, we have to put in, so many years of service before we're able to reap those benefits, right? And for me, I didn't realize the toll of the longevity of the career, basically meaning that I'm geographically anchored for 25 to 30 years, where for whatever reason, you never know, right? You never know, but for whatever reason, let's say my family wanted to move out of state or even north a couple hours, um, just to, like down here in South Florida, there's a lot of congestion, there's a lot of population, a lot of people moving down, and we are geographically anchored for the foreseeable future with me staying at the fire department. Because, again, for me to reap the benefits and stuff, I have to be at that career for 25 to 30 years. So um, that's one thing that a lot of people don't realize with city, county jobs, public safety jobs, is where you decide to get hired is very important. Where you decide to take employment is important because you're going to be there for a very long time, and being able to move and all those things. You may be able to move around the county. What we have a lot of people do a lot of times is they move and they make the commute. We have people that commute 2 to 3 hours to the city that I work in, just so that they can move away from the congestion, but then still come to work at where they've been for so many years. We had a person. I'm in Florida. We had a person live in like North Carolina, and we also had a person live in um, California, and they would literally have to fly back to South Florida, live here for like a month or something crazy. They had this crazy schedule, and basically you can see the extreme is what I'm trying to get at, is the extreme that sometimes you would have to go to if you wanted to move, or if your family had an opportunity where moving was a good option. But for public safety and people in these jobs and in these careers, we have to still try to make it work in order for us to reap the benefits that come 25, 30 years after we start employment. So and it was a cool situation because obviously very young people that came by yesterday, um, but it's something for them to think about, and it's something for them to at least. And I don't say it to deter them. I don't say it to deter them at all. It's more of the reality of the situation. Of look, when you try to take employment or decide where you want to work, make sure you think about that projection 25, 30 years. When I got hired, I didn't have any kids. Now I have kids, and it's like, okay, now I need to make sure I'm living in an area where there's good schools, where it's a good community, all those different things that that just serve and help me finish out my career, and hopefully one day be able to reap those benefits that we work for. So not to get too much off topic, but I thought it was definitely an interesting question. I really wish that there was a little bit more direction so that I can make it more specific. I try to use some different examples to hopefully, like I said, give you some examples so that you can reference it if it's not completely accurate of what you're going through. Um, but it's definitely possible to still remain friends with people, but they have to be on the same page of definitely working to find the truth. When we let our egos get in the way and really dictate our behavior and the way that we treat other people, I think you see a lot of the nastiness in the world sometimes. When we're able to know ourselves and to know when that ego is starting to flare up within ourselves, for people, it's, their blood pressure gets up, they start to get really antsy, they start to move around. Um, you hear something or somebody says something that offends you and you get defensive, and you put like these shields up to deflect and to hurt them back. Like, that's, again, it's nothing wrong as far as it being a normal response, but it is wrong when we choose that as our response. Sometimes you do need that moment and that opportunity to walk away or to collect your thoughts, because I've seen it way too many times where you do something or you say something, and then 2 weeks later you're coming back and you're apologizing. And when you say stuff, like, yeah, you can apologize, but it doesn't go away. Those thoughts, those words, those actions, um, that spirit has shown its face, and it's still alive. you know so the much better option is to learn that self-control, to learn that ability to say, okay, look, I am offended. I'm feeling myself, getting a little bit excited or aggravated or something. I'm just going to take some time to myself, kind of um, collect my thoughts, and then we can finish this conversation later. I've done it in my own personal relationship, and with my significant other, my fiance, where sometimes she's done it to me. I have said something to her, and she was like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 time out. I'm gonna take 10, and we're gonna come back to this, and then we'll talk about it." And vice versa. I've had to do it myself, where there's something just continuously happening or whatever, and I'm just like, "Look, I need a second." And sometimes we don't realize that we have that time. We have that opportunity. It's as easy as it is to communicate. Sometimes at first, The people that you're doing it with, it might throw them for a loop if you've been doing things a little bit differently for a long time. But again, the people that you're working with, the people that you're in relationships with, is it something that are they someone that are on your communication level? Are they going to see that what you're trying to do is for the betterment of the relationship and of the situation, and you're not trying to run from a conversation, you're just trying to collect your thoughts and create a better conversation, something with more direction and purpose instead of just emotions and being aggravated. So a lot of it comes down to with who you're communicating with. It's absolutely okay to, and again, I don't think we say this enough, um, to say that, yeah, some relationships are dead. Some relationships um, are not serving you well. It doesn't mean that you look at the person any differently and like it's a bad thing, but they're just moving in a different direction with their life. Um, I've gone into certain entrepreneurial endeavors, some other things that I don't really talk a lot about on here. Um, but the people that I grew up with a lot of times aren't exactly into a lot of the same things, but we still hold a really good relationship because there are still a lot of things that we have in common. I just understand that when I go to hang out with them, they're not too into real estate, or they're not into stocks, or they're not into building a business. They're into family, and that still holds a very important piece of my life. So when I see them, I just don't talk about those things, or if I do, I touch on it and I move on to family or things that we have in common. And it's just, again, just that inventory and that understanding of knowing who you're with, who you're having a conversation with. I know some people that you have a conversation with family sometimes, and you have this conversation about goals and ideas and things that you want to do, and they just shoot them down. That's a very difficult situation to be in, because you feel like, hey, this is my family, or these are my life, my lifelong friends, my childhood friends. I felt like I should have support in this moment. But again, it's not that your plans are bad, or it's not that your plans are impossible or not possible, I should say. It's just that they don't share they don't share that light. They don't share that path. Sometimes, when you get into things that are outside of the norm, a lot of times it's because things are associated with more risk. Things are associated with more um, time dedication. A lot of people don't want to commit that time to studying or to investing or into whatever it is that you're doing. If you're trying to get healthy, eat better, exercise better, there's the people that just want to, instead of on a Sunday, today's Sunday, instead of watching football or sporting events, you want to go to the gym and go grocery shopping for good food. Maybe they just want to stay and watch their sporting events. Like, doesn't make them wrong. It's just their life, and you got to understand that that's the direction. And when you start to have that understanding and that love and appreciation for people, and understanding the roles that you have, um, I think life just becomes a lot easier. A lot easier. There's a saying that my mother used to tell me, or still tells me, I should say, to today, that life is simple. It's we who complicate it. I'm not sure if that comes from someone else. If there is, you can add it in the comments if that's like a famous quote. But I know my mom has said it to me, a bunch of times when I start to get stressed out about certain things. And life is as simple as understanding your relationships and understanding who you're talking to. When we get into these nasty, or a huge thing that I've seen, and I'll close out with this, are grudges. Hold on to that bitterment, and that resentment for other people. Man, it can completely um, shape your life, and not in a good way, not in a good way. Let me be clear on that, because I've seen family that haven't spoken to each other for years, and the only thing that brought them together was the passing of an, another family member, a third family member, and it was at that moment that they realized how precious life is, how precious the time we have together is, and that they didn't speak for years. I want to say like over a decade, over 10 years, where they didn't speak, and it took that one moment to realize just how childish and how not important their argument or the disagreement was, and it took that moment to see past it. And again, another huge motivation for me, and it plays into what I was speaking on, that the react state is so dangerous. It's so dangerous because we can let so much precious time, so much precious opportunities pass us by because we are willing to, live in a reactive state instead of moving to the proactive state. And a lot of times the proactive state seems like this big ordeal, and it's only for the select few, and it's for these people that just have more attention and more resources or time or money. Um, and it's not. It's just as simple as managing your time and making sure that you keep and maintain priorities as priorities. So, um, hopefully, a lot of the stuff that we touched on, I felt like we got some pretty good examples in. If you're watching this and you sent me the email, and I didn't answer your question and you would like to make it more specific, I can, definitely try to dive into that if we didn't touch on it here, and it's going to be beneficial for everyone else that's watching. Then definitely reach out if you have a question yourself and you want to reach out. Again, when I do these live segments, you can always pop up your questions while I'm speaking. I'll do my best to try to answer them. Again, if they are associated with what we're building on, or I can, get to it without diverting too much. Also, reaching out to me on social media. Any questions, obviously, email info@jrsinspires.com. Happy to answer your questions. I love it when we're able, I don't know if I touched on this, I love it when we are able to ask the questions where everybody can see them. Just because I feel like it invites other people to ask questions. It opens up the communication, it opens up the conversation, I should say, where we can start bouncing things off of each other and really move with a purpose and a direction. So that's it for this video. Again, thank you guys so much for your time. If you have any questions, comments, or anything like that, add it down below. Like, share, subscribe, all those fun things, so that we can get this video out to the people that need it. Sometimes I've watched a lot of videos or read certain articles that sometimes I don't really take a lot from it, but I still like to share it. I still like to talk about it with other people because sometimes it may not be pertinent or that important for me at this moment in my life, but it might be that for someone else. And it's as simple as just hitting that button and sharing it, or talking about it with someone at dinner or at work or something like that. And um, you can really help and transform somebody's life. So don't be shy, don't be hesitant, and reach out. And we'll talk soon. All right, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. And until next time, Jonathan signing out. Peace.